Hey guys, here we're going to describe the science that will form the worldview that we will then go explore for ourselves and prove true in our own experience. As we shake our fist at that truck. With love. Now, I'm going to pull out the essentials here, and I'm going to mostly make it like a story. In the notes here, I'll link a write-up that I did, and that references articles and books for like a deeper exploration if you like to really like firsthand read the science and the articles and the experiments. That is good. I was that way myself, yes. Now, there's a few things that really tie this together, and since we mentioned Dumbledore already, make this like an incontrovertible. Remember when he says the evidence of the Dark Lord's return is incontrovertible? Meaning like, it's hard to argue against this, and then you're going to go find it true in your own experience, and then you're going to be lit up and on fire. Now, the nature of light has been proven to be interconnected. Now, I'll explain this in detail, but just to stress how far out this is, in Einsteinian days, the math showed that this would be the case, but it just seems so far out that Einstein was skeptical that this would prove true in our experience or experimentally. He called it spooky action at a distance. And what this is basic quantum entanglement, which puts us into this interconnection concept, and I'll describe it pretty simple layman's terms. If you have two pieces of light, and interestingly, they're trying to, and they have already done this with like more macro objects, like marble-sized almost. But let's just start with two pieces of light, like a photon. Their ability to exchange information has been proven to be instantaneous, as opposed to, as we would typically, in the old school days, have considered to have been only possible at the maximum speed of light. It's like you have to make a phone call, is how we used to understand it. Information had to propagate through time and space. But what we're finding is instead there's an instantaneous transfer of information. This is why people talk about us being interconnected. You know, if you've ever had like a phone call from your friend Billy Bob, just as you were thinking of Billy Bob, it's like that kind of phenomena. It's like, whoa, the place is unified and whole. Now, people have been using metaphors like a hologram. In a hologram, certain types of holograms, a very itty-bitty corner of the hologram actually contains the whole image. Maybe more faintly and less vividly, but the whole image. And so, you know, people are getting kind of far out there, and, you know, there's ways in which you could see like all of the universe encoded in each little bit. For our purposes, what we want to stress is like, this place is informed. It's all very much light energy, and it's pulsing and it's alive. You know, we look very dense, but like, you get your microscopes out and it's like, what is even there? Is it all just charge? What is charge? Is it energy? Is energy consciousness? Like, we've got those equations to equate energy and matter. Will we have consciousness equated to energy at some point? The place is like alive and united and holistic and gestalty. Now, the second main thing is like, not only does light exchange information in like an awesome fashion, in some underbelly of time or space, or some dimension that holds time and space. The physics term for this is non-local, meaning it's like, it's not local to our time-space domain. The interconnection is just happening. It's amazing. Now, my point here is like, not only does the light operate that way, but there's tremendous incontrovertible studies that show the human mind operates on that bandwidth, meaning like you and I are not confined to our local perception, right? We have non-local faculties. Simple things like being able to, that Billy Bob thing I talked about, when Billy Bob calls, and actually they've done tremendous amounts of laboratory work, things like precognition, or being able to sense the probable future. It's not like humans can do it 100% of the time, but like we can do it. Like, with statistical significance, we can actually peer into the future. We can receive information from far away. You know? Sarah Jane is in Japan looking at a hot air balloon, and like someone in a lab can actually discern that. You're thinking of like weird Russian twins, Siamese twins, and one of them's looking at like a flower and the other one's drawing a flower in the other room. The data on that is like incontrovertible, which is cool. And we've each had like experiences like this in our life where we just felt like either like deja vu, or like we sensed something was coming, or we knew something, we had a hunch. And what I'm talking about here is if we like crystallize our belief system in this fashion, those things increase because we expect them. And if we expect them, you know, we encounter more of them. Now, there's one really, really important point in addition to this to make, but I want to summarize. What I'm saying here is like the places, information, energy, alive, ba-bump, 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 it communicates in a non-local fashion, right? It's not bound to like the time and space rules that we have, you know, traditionally thought of in a more Newtonian sense. And our mind plays on that bandwidth. So you and I, as humans, I mean, we have extrasensory perception, right? And this is even in a culture that doesn't believe in it. Once we like know this stuff, it's just gonna heat up and heat up and heat up. Now, this next point is like crucial, game-changing. Not only like are we aware of things all over the place, but the human faculty can shift or shape the energy. This is like when people get all new agey and they're like, ah, thoughts become things. Well, what they're talking about is like something true. Maybe you could use it in a cooler way than trying to manifest a boat, but what is true is that like the place is being shaped. And I'll talk about some science to back this up in a second, but let me make the story first. It's not just a one-time creation, big bang, and everything's set in motion. It's like it's being shaped by a living, breathing process. It's an information field, okay? There's wave equations for it. We'll talk about that in a second. But it's always being shaped. And it's not just a fancy God that's shaping it. It's like you and I are included in that shaping process. Meaning our selfhood, or who we are, is here. Time and space, perceiving it. You know, we're in the creation, but we're also aspects of ourselves that for a lot of us are subconscious, but you can become conscious of these faculties or portions of your being, are within that realm that is shaping this place. You could call that spirit country. In David Bohm's physics, I'll talk about that in a second, it's called the implicate order. Some spiritual teachers call it framework 2. The formative realm, the shaping realm. Obviously, like, physical reality is tremendously important too. It's kind of like embryologists talk about, let me just make this aside, then I'll get back to David Bohm's physics. Embryologists like study how the embryo evolves before like the central command system that we think of as like the brain is in place, and it's as if an energy field is shaping it, and some of them think it's like a spiritual energy field that's shaping it. And the way they like to describe it, some of them, is like, it's like spirit is playing an instrument. And it's not like the fiddle doesn't matter. Like if you break your leg, like, you know, that matters. It's like breaking a string on a fiddle. But also there's a spiritual process playing the fiddle, and you and I are both. You know, we're in the creation and we're like, dun, da, 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 dun, da, 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 we're playing. And I mean, my main thesis, like with this video series, is that I want people to be aware of the spiritual aspect of themselves so you can communicate with it. And we'll talk about how that increases your voltage, literally in like an energetic sense, and your knowingness and your, you know, purposefulness, your creativity, you know, all this stuff heats up. But let me be a little scientific here, and then we'll wrap this, okay? So there's a lot of great physical models right now, or physicists doing things that are getting pretty spiritual again, or re-enchanting ourselves. And I like to point out David Bohm. He worked at, he was younger than Einstein, but he worked at Princeton in the same timeline as Einstein. And Bohm was like just really cool in general. If you read up on his life story, ton of integrity, a great thinker, a clean thinker. And Einstein once said of him, if anyone will move forward quantum physics, it'll be Bohm. David Bohm. Now, again, in the write-up, I'll have some resources if you want to like dive into it. I'll even have some textbooks for the physicists out there. In his model, he did something tremendous mathematically. He achieved a form of understanding that includes this implicate order I'm going to talk about, or this formative order, and that allows for relativity, or like macro Einstein, like planetary, like gravitational speed of light, big physics, and the quantum, or the small, what we've called quantum physics, the iota, the minutia. And all of that can be done in one form of mathematics, which is cool. But for our practical day-to-day lives, because most of us don't need any math every day, what he did is he made it very, like, objectively true that this place is being formed. Always, continually. He has wave equations for it. It's, like, amazing. The physical reality, or as he terms it, the explicate order, is seen as a subset of the implicate order. So there's, like, spirit country, and within spirit country, there's increasing levels, and this is true mathematically for him as well. Like, and we'll talk later about your first-hand experience, but you'll experience something firsthand like that as well. There's kind of like orders of creation, and it's like physical reality is exchanging information, breathe in, breathe out style with the formative realm. But the important thing is you and I play in that formative realm. Now, some additional science to kind of like make this practical is there's even data on our ability to like shift electrons with our intention. So it's like our intention or awareness, right, or psychology or inners are in that formative realm. And simple experiments like trying to get an electron to move left or right. They, random splitter, electron's gonna go left or right. If we have a person, just like a random college kid, not like a mystic, sitting there intending for left, there's a statistical significant outcome. Cool side notes, people working together have a stronger effect. We're not at 100% yet, guys. A lot of this is, like, in time we'll get stronger in this faculty because our belief system drives a lot of it. But people working together have a stronger effect, and people working together who have an emotional bond have an even stronger effect. Women have a slightly stronger effect. We all have both masculine and feminine energy. But my hypothesis is, like, that feminine is more, like, in touch with, like, the inner or implicate. Masculine's more about like the form and the outward, but that's an aside and not essential. I'm just saying, like, even things like that, our ability to like shift the way in which reality actually moves. Now, I could talk, and I will later, about my own personal experiences. Like, guys, this becomes like your living, breathing experience. It's like you realize you're manifesting your form, especially your body and your experience, your day-to-day events, and the quality of your interaction with others. So much of it is generated by that inner engine of expectation and belief. Like, your awareness is kind of at the helm in a really cool way. All right. We're gonna wrap this soon. I know this is a lot to digest. We'll summarize. This might be lame for some of you, but it's like that children of God. It's like we really are extensions of the Godhead, and we are endowed, and that's just a word, but like we are endowed with those sorts of faculties. Like, we're learning how to manage energies, and like our reality is like mirroring for us like our expectations and our beliefs, and like combined with our innards and our actions, like we're like forming an experience that teaches us. And when we learn to see this as true in our life, like, everything has so much power. Like, we can shift experiences because we understand why they're in our field, and we learn to like go within and find like the root reason we keep experiencing certain things, and we change those patterns, we change those understandings, and we create an even better experience. It's like we get the reins back, guys, and you're like, you have no fear, or way less fear, because you know you're gonna go experience like what you're in alignment with. You know what I mean? Like, silly example, but I went to Africa, and people, like, a few people before I went were like, aren't you worried about like disease or any of that. Like I knew that wasn't going to be my experience because I was going with like a certain purpose and reason and understanding and love. And like, you know, I was even drinking the tap water when I was instructed to. Like, you know, you're safe, you know? I don't worry about shooting. Same thing. I know my spirit's going to guide me to be in a place where there isn't a shooting. I know my field propagates like a form of being in which people like aren't going to do that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? I'm saying like once you realize that this place is energy and you realize that you're propagating a field of expectation and intention and desire, you become very conscious of that and you work at that level. Like it's super efficient, super efficient. Healthcare is a very good example, right? Yeah. Without this understanding, people just think it's all the explicate order, which is just a portion of it. And so they track how the chemicals move and, you know, they adjust the chemicals, but they never get in that implicate order where often the issue is at. And so even if you solve the chemicals at this layer, the inner self's going to keep knocking, right? Manifest a disease elsewhere, and you have to keep going back for those explicate order solutions, when really often what's called for is like an implicate order solution, right? Or a form of being, an understanding shift, a life force shift, like, oh, I'm being called in this direction, right? And so to include the awareness of this implicate order is game-changing. Let me summarize, okay? What I'm saying here is like, our science is important. Our science is going to tee us up with a whole new understanding. The last century of physics and like even paranormal studies has, which is the new normal, has really been like life-giving. And we're seeing it's all energy, light, information, play, charge, and that it's being sculpted by an innerness that we are joined with. Thus, we are children of God in a reality that is miraculous, and we have eternity to play with, and we're learning lessons in a gnarly game of cowboy adventure that I will describe later. And the next thing I want to talk through is how to prove this true in your own experience, because even though there's this science, it's like, it's almost, at least it was for me, it's hard to believe. It may intuitively ring true, and it should intuitively ring true, because like, your soul remembers this stuff and knows this stuff, and we all signed up to like embody this stuff here on earth. That's why we're here. So it should intuitively ring true, but I'm going to talk through next a process I embarked on to kind of like scientifically prove it true. And you always have to hedge against confirmation bias, you know, all those things you would expect to have to hedge against, but you will continually and increasingly gain evidence that strengthens your belief, which it's like a ever-building process, which, like, ooh, now that you expect it even more so, you get more synchronicity, more miracle, more the place being alive, more creator understanding, and then eventually you're rocking that bandwidth, and it's like reality moves as you move, and it's almost like a new station on a TV. And then we'll talk about how to draw out the light in others, and how to heal yourself, and get your energy cranking, and the energy game we're playing, and all that. All right, good. So this should be very useful for you. And to me, this is, if I had to say like what's the most important thing for our culture, it would be this conceptual switch, because out of the understanding that you land in, like environmental solutions, healthcare solutions, political solutions are like readily at hand. We're unified, we're one team, we're amazing individuals, we're creating our experience. And out of that feeling tone and understanding, the victim perspective is gone, the wah is gone, the no solutions is gone. You know, the endless bickering is gone, the tit for tat is gone. You realize you just want to get your energy straight and create a future that is of your desire. You forgive, you let go, you learn lessons, you know. It's the recipe for the golden age that we are stepping into now. Yeah. All right, over and out. Stay tuned. Yellow, yellow, yellow tie. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.